So it's not Footnotes Podcast, is it? We're in the Amen Brother Studios, and today I am with Riya and Zar, and we're going to talk
and
about...
we're with LSB.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about a bit about Footnotes, a bit about These Times, the latest track that's just come out as part of Footnotes 20 on the label, which is a various artist... My bag's just fallen over, standards. Various artist EP/album that's coming out on the label with Zar, Viiah, Noppo and Bazil and Channell, and this was one of the lead singles. So but what we decided is there was a bit of a familiar theme going on. So I've relaunched the label a little bit, and if you want to talk about These Times in a second, I've gone with a strapline called Art Over Content. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means to me. I'm not even 100% sure what it means, but I can just waffle around, and maybe you can talk about the track. Yeah. So, let's start with These Times. I think just like a minute on how it come together and like the meaning and how that links to what I'm talking about with the label and how it was very serendipitous.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to start on how it came together? I can talk about the...
Yeah, sure, I'll start how it came together. So the track is part of my EP on Footnotes called What For. So it comes from the... sort of like at the time when I was writing it, not really knowing what I was doing it for without sounding, And so in the end, I kind of worked out that it's just about staying true to yourself and like what you love to do, like with your influences of like me, like I love jazz, hip hop, soul. So I kind of just want to hone in on that. And the EP came from that and kind of understanding. Of where it was coming from. So obviously I had These Times written as an instrumental, and me and Luke were kind of like organising the EP, and he asked me like, oh, who would you like to get? And you were the first person on my list, so the only one.
literally the only one.
Yeah. So and then
honored.
Yeah. So you kind of hit the nail on the head, I'd say, really.
It's so funny because we were talking about this before, and we didn't realise, when you touch on it, that we're coming from the same place with it. So when you sent me the track, I was on the same vibe with it, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I was in a creative rut. I was like, what am I going to write about? What for, kind of thing. And so it took me ages to come up with a concept. And the stay true thing was something that was going on in my life in lots of different ways. But I was getting told so much about, if you want to be successful, you need to do this, or you need to do this much social media content, you need to put this out. And I was like, I don't want to buy into all that. I don't want to do that. That's not how I want to do it. It's not true to me. It's not authentic. And so that became sort of part of the lyrics that we've talked about. It's just amazing how that kind of happened. And then there's just the other bit about staying true to myself and listening to my inner voice. There was loads of life challenges going on at the time. And I was just thinking, what do? I don't know what I should do. And everyone had their opinion about stuff. And I was getting really confused. And in the end, I realised like the best advice or the best place to come from is just listening to yourself and following your own heart. And that was it, really. That's These Times.
So when we started talking about this release, and then I put a post up, which you might have seen like last week, which is like art over content. We talked about how we might want to promote it and how we didn't really like content, so we thought what we'd do is get in a studio and film some content, content and talk about it and be like, no, but in all seriousness, I thought we could just talk a little bit about what this means to all of us. And so kind of the label itself, Footnotes, started really out of necessity 2018, I think. Yeah, pretty sure it's 2018, just to release some of my music. The name, I'd done an album called Content on Solar, and there was always going to be the Footnote, which was like the tracks that didn't quite sit on the album that we liked, and then suddenly that became the name of the label, and the EP become A New Day. And then really what's just happened over the last sort of 6-7 years has happened because I've worked, and this is part of the reason why I've always worked, and we've both talked about this, and like other sources of income is I made a conscious decision that I wanted to keep like my hobby or the art pure and keep it something that I always really enjoyed. I didn't want to resent it, didn't want it to too much ever to feel like a job, even though there was a part of me that just wanted it to be my job, but sort of on my own terms. But yeah, so the label sort of it's done okay in spite of the fact that I've never really actively tried to run it, I suppose, or had a strategy. It's just some friends that had music that I liked, I'd put out, and thankfully I've got friends who make some pretty good music, so it's pretty that's pretty helpful. So, and then And then weirdly, like we mentioned this, we just spoke earlier, just had a little drink. And so I thought about this sort of art over content line in my head, because I just hate gimmicks really when it comes to music. Like that's the thing that I really don't like. But also I just felt like the enforced thing that perhaps like labels have become, even in drum and bass, which is it's business to one extent, and there's a part of it that's big business, but like for a lot of independent labels, it's just a lifestyle or a hobby. And I felt as an artist, like what would I want for a label? I wouldn't particularly want a schedule of having to do this, having to do that, which wasn't actually just writing. So I thought about how I would like as an artist and a label to operate. So I thought about this sort of art over content, and that's not to say that like, because content is just it's a necessity to a point, but I believe in social media being like a platform to communicate rather than to sell, if that makes sense, to know it exists. So so then I had this bit, and then I read a book to my daughter Ivy, my eldest daughter. It's called Cat Kid Comic Club, which is by the guy that does like Captain Underpants and Dogman, which you hadn't heard of. I hadn't heard of before I had kids. But there was like, there's the Cat Kid Comic Club it feels to me like the author, who's already had some success, is writing a book about him coming out of his own writer's block, and it's just like a group of sort of school kids that are frogs that are there, and they're learning to write comics. And there's one sort of chapter about how they're starting, and all these kids are like, I don't know how to write a comic, and he's just like, well, just write a bad comic, just go away and write the worst comic you possibly can. And then for a few pages it sort of really resonated on me, that this like concept that it's impossible to write a good comic if you're too scared to write a bad one. And that's sort of the freedom to fail. So I wanted to pitch, and as I go forward with the label, something that's like less A&R heavy. I'm more thinking about the concept that I would work with artists on an EP, a bit more like you'd commission art. So if you'd go to like, I don't know, an artist and say, hey, do me a painting, it's not like they don't send you 10 paintings in a folder and you choose one, or it's rarely that. It's like you commission a painting. So within reason, it's like some artists like, I'd like to do an EP or something. These are the sort of things that I like of yours, and I'd like you to pursue that avenue and feel like you've got the freedom to do it, and the freedom to do it crap. And I just felt as an artist, as someone who, I don't know, has consistent writer's block, and I don't know if that's anything that you do.
I do.
Yeah. Like I constantly suffer with it. Is that I was like, right, okay, I'm just going to stop trying to write the perfect tune, just go and write a crap tune.
But you know what's so interesting about it though is like this concept of failure, right? It's like, what is failure? And it's something I always like come back to so many times. How do you measure success? But what to me is success? The things where I've thought this song's definitely do really well, and then that doesn't happen, and then something where I think it's a bad tune ends up doing really well. And it's like your perception of what you think is bad, it might not actually be bad to other people. And also the song that you think isn't, you know, a big tune might be the message someone needs to hear, or that one song's going to change someone's life.
Yeah, it
right?
resonates.
It might not be in the top 10 of something, but then you'll get someone at a gig somewhere and they'll go, do you know what, if I hadn't heard that song, I might have taken my own life. And I've had people say that to me.
It's genuinely really humbling. And
yeah, and you're like, so what's success? Like, to that person, that was a successful song. Like, have you actually failed? And I just think it's quite interesting how we put so much pressure on ourselves, like, to be success, but who's defining it?
Yeah, and it's,
you know,
and on that, so I wrote a bit of some music, sort of like last summer, and it's quite sad, drum and bass, and I sent it to a few of like my trusted people before Sun and Bass, and I heard nothing. Right, and I don't like you're busy. I get sent music all the time, and I don't miss it, and it really knocked my confidence in it. And in fact, I've sent it recently to Freddie at FD, we've just seen, because they've just recorded up here, and he's actually sent me some comments. It's like, I finally listened to it, it's quite nice. And I was like, actually, I really needed to hear that.
Aww.
And it's like, it's you don't, I think as an artist, and like some people might perceive me as done quite well, but for me, every time I go to the sequencer, I'm like, how do I even do this? I can't remember. How did I ever write it? Sometimes I go and listen back to my old tracks to think, I was capable of doing this. Let's try and do it again. But like, but what that's coming out of is just like pure fear of failure, or fear, and it's just not. I'm just trying to get and I'm still learning. As I say, I still don't like the rejection of it, but you need to harden yourself. Sorry, excuse me, to that. And so I think often you do these things as a reflection of what you would want to see, and that's what the label is. It's like, I just want to know that if I send, I don't know, so say you send me some music and like I want you to feel like you can send it, and it's okay if it's not like. I just want you to be able to send it because there'll be good stuff there. Not to think that if he doesn't hear from me or this one, it has to be this one. I suddenly think you're bad. It's like, no, I trust you to write music, and I want you to just go and do it. And if it takes a week, if it takes a month, if it takes 5 years, that doesn't matter. And that's the thing that I want to try and move away from, which some of that, and a lot of these labels are really successful at doing it. The fact that everything needs to be scheduled. So we might find loads of Footnotes releases early next year. We might find none, but that would just be depending on when it comes.
I think artists really need people that believe in them, and believe in what they're doing. And like when an artist comes to a label, you all of us suffer with confidence issues, right? All of us, because we're artists, we've all got a story, we've all got a background. And we've all got that thing, like we're going to get writer's block and we're going through this process and we're like channeling stuff into song. So you need someone to be like, I believe in you, believe in what you're doing, just go and do your thing. Instead of it being like, that's crap, that's this, that's that. Again, it's all subjective. So I think it's really great that you're doing that and it's a good thing. I feel like I've seen your journey over time and you've always been, supporting artists in that way and you've been very true to yourself as well. So it really resonates and I think it's a really great thing, Luke.
Yeah,
really good.
We'll see. Hopefully it works. But as I say, I'm just giving it I'm giving myself the freedom for it not to work and it to be a failure, right? And that's part of the concept because I'm quite candid with like any artist that I work for. It's an independent label. It's just me. I'll do the best I can and but there's a sincerity in it, and I believe that the music hopefully will then resonate in a certain way, and some stuff will do well, and like some, as you say, like you can't really predict like how well a track will do, and certainly in the streaming days, you're a bit like playlists. You can get on a playlist and you suddenly be like, okay, that track's done really well, but as you say, like it might not resonate as with as many individual people.
But then a track can do really well streaming. And then not do well in the club. And
a
track can do really well in the club. And then like trying to actually get that one where it's right in the middle is, I don't know. There's so many things to consider, isn't there? That it's just like, I'll just do your thing. Just, and in the song we talk about that as well, is like, for me, like just being true to yourself and being true to like what things light you up, what things you really enjoy, what brings you happiness. Because I really believe that if you do those things, not only are you going to be happy, then other people are going to resonate with that, and then there's going to be more happiness in the world. And like music's one vehicle, art's another. There's loads of different ways, but just come from that place, not what people tell you to do. And I'm not saying I get that right all the time. It's like a constant battle to do that, but that's what I'm trying to get to, remind myself of, just staying true.
Yeah, definitely. Everything you've said just resonates with me massively. Like I've been starting out like last few years really, and like you were like, both of you are artists that I looked up to or still look up to, but like the fact that you never compromised with your production over the years massively resonates with me. And I think the whole journey of it, even when we first met at like Sun and Bass, like that's when I was kind of like not knowing where I was going and like, what do I do to kind of like, I'm not like looking for fame or anything. I just want to make good music and it resonate the same way with other people. So I did that set, I remember, at Space Cadet, and I played like 100% of my production. That set at Bal Harbour, and you came up to me after and you were like, we met like the night before or something, and you came up to me and was like, I want you to be involved with Footnotes. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? Like, and that gave me the confidence massively to like then send you music, and then that was kind of the music that I wrote in that time when I was like kind of trying to figure out where it was going, and then it kind of then built into then what this is that's coming out with you, like what has come out and the project behind it. And it's like, it's amazing to like see how it goes and that we all share similar views on it as well. And it's like,
I think there's like, I'm not unique in that there's people that post things around this are quite a lot, and there's almost like a shift back to it. And I think we might find a shift away from like the digital age for more like community experiences, which I think are really important. Like we've all got like device elated over the years where everything's there, and you can see like the tide turning and people want that like more independent experience. And I think that there's an audience that sort of can see through some of that. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm not like there's people that have absolutely smashed it with their content or and what they do, and it's just like live and let live. Like that's fantastic for them, and they will bring more people to the music broadly. But it's just knowing that there's alternatives out there, or there's people that just have or labels that have a different ethos. And there's plenty of them about in drum and bass. Footnotes is not the only one. But while we're there, Zar, I will talk about you just for a few minutes. There's the next project, which will be 21, is a bit of a collaborative project between yourself and DRS, and it's also a collaborative project between two labels, which is Footnotes and Space Cadet. We did a similar thing with the Blue Hour. Rather than have a fight about what label it comes out with, we'll split it. So we're doing you can talk a little bit about it, but there's two EPs. One would be on Footnotes, I think number 1, and number 2 would be on Space Cadet, and it'd be part of a sort of an album project. Yeah. So maybe just
talk about
a little bit about that.
So the project's called Milestones. So that comes from like Dell obviously turning 50 this year, and I don't know if I was meant to say that.
No, it's fine. He said it.
He did. Okay,
yeah.
And then for me, that kind of resonates with me because for me, like obviously I've been starting out the last few years, and Dell has been a massive supporter of me from day dot. Like he was like one of the first people I've lived in Manchester for like 8 years. He was the first person I worked with, maybe like start of COVID, and he really gave me the confidence to carry on. And like at that time, I was like releasing on a couple labels like Focus and maybe collab recordings or whatever. And I remember I just sent music to Space Cadet to Dan, and I didn't know Dan at the time, and I sent him a hip hop tune, and he was like, yeah, Dell loves it. He's doing a demo. And I was like, oh, okay. Week later, get like this hip hop tune.
Nice.
And I love hip hop. It was like with a jazz musician. I was like, this is insane. And that tune is now Spiders that came out on my debut album last year. So I owe a lot to Dell and Dan and Space Cadet. And that sparked a lot of future collaboration. So then I have a studio in Manchester, and Dell would come and we'd just make songs from scratch. Like I'd show him tunes and he'd be like, no, let's start fresh. And I'm like, oh, okay, like no pressure. Like, and then do it. And we just made like, it's 12 tracks now. So 2 6-track EPs, Act 1 and Act 2, like what, a year and a half. Like maybe we've been working in person the last year and a half, maybe. And Verbs is featured on the project, where he kind of sparked those face-to-face collaborations. Like we had Verbs in the studio up in Manny, and Dell came and we made like 3 tracks in one day, basically, and 2 of them are on the project. So, yeah, and to be honest, like I'm absolutely honoured to be doing something like this, especially with you, and like you do the whole space age thing, and you had the Blue Hour and everything. So
it's interesting, right? Because like the Blue Hour was more online. We had like 4 days in an Airbnb in Dallas where we had like like an MC mic, like a toilet roll, like propped up on like in just some like kitchen. And what we would do is we'd go, the routine was the same. We'd go eat barbecue, eat as much barbecue as we could. Listen to like 80s bangers, but just going through like picking up like ones, and then we'd write for a few hours, and that's what we did. And obviously like. But I don't know if I could do tunes from scratch in front of people in that way. I'm just too much of an imposter, I think, really. So you obviously got some musical talent that I don't possess. But like, but Del is just like, it sort of flows. It's like water. Whereas when he's on, he's
a machine.
Yeah,
no, it really is. Like, and I'm honestly spoilt to be working with like people like you, like vocalists like you, like Verbs, like Del, like all these people that you're just so talented, and seeing like Dell work in the studio like as he does is unbelievable. Like we write tune, we'd have a session, like maybe write 1 or 2 every session, and then it got to like however many we have for this project, and it's unbelievable, to be honest.
Yeah, as I say, it's just flow like
and it flows. It's natural as well, and this is the thing about Dell is another person that's kind of pushed me to give me the confidence of staying true, because it's like he loves hip hop as much as I do. Like that's what we kind of like connect on, and like we just had that vibe, and we just roll with it. We're not really like in the studio like, oh, we'll make this to make it sound like that, or to make it do this, or you know what I mean. So
that's amazing. Yeah. So it's this is how bad I am at running a label. It's called Milestones. Didn't know the actual name. And I knew I said EP1 and EP2. I knew it was Act 1 and Act 2, but I forgot. But like I think we're going to try and drop at least a single in December to coincide with. And then get the 2-track EP vinyl. So it's one to check out.